too much good. Stuff down totally. Could be too much good. We can't try.
Welcome to another episode of Grind My Gears. Today we got the gentleman Josh Hill in with us. How you doing, brother?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm all right. Well, we were just talking before about sick kids and freaking school, but that is what it is. But I'm sure they'll find a way to make that bad now too, with kids
Oh.
going back to school.
Oh, any sign of sniffling or any normal things that are used to be normal, it's gonna be worrisome and chaotic for people.
Now, what many people don't know is you're a veteran of this fight game. Long time been fighting. You just had one in Bellator, and the decision didn't go your way. But what came out of it was a fucking highlight reel elbow that went viral. How long were you working on that elbow for? Like, was that something you always do, or was it just like you saw it and you just kind of reacted and did it?
I've been doing that and training on pads and stuff for years, and it's just something it's not something you think about a lot in fights, really.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was. I think I saw him just kind of like shelling up, and I throw an overhand a lot. So I assume people that watch me fight know that's coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of fake the overhand to get his guard up, and I don't know. It's just when you're flowing, you don't really think about stuff like that. You just do it, right?
It just happened. Yeah. It's like a lot of people criticize John Jones for like his high risk stuff, but
Yeah.
he's like it's not high risk if you're doing it in the gym all the time. And
Yeah.
I bet you when he's in there too, he's like, oh shit, spin, right? Because he's like nobody at 205 spins, right? At your weight class, 100%. But like it's like one of those things where you've done it in the gym, you fool around on the pads, you're like, oh, I'll keep it in the tool belt, but then oh
Yeah.
shit, there it is. But it was very Anderson Silva esque. The only thing was he didn't crumble to the ground.
I know, man. I know. It would have been perfect. I probably would have got like a knockout of the year.
Yeah, well, it was very. Remember when Anderson knocked out? Was it Tony Frickland?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very similar, except this guy didn't crumble.
He
Unfortunately,
took it well. He took a lot of credit to him. I wish I had hit with a little bit more bone rather
yeah,
than my
more.
tricep area.
Yeah, it was more tricep. Still,
Yeah, too much. Yeah,
still rocked him though. Like he was still
still
stunned
rocked
by it.
it. Yeah, but yeah, tough kid. Give him credit for taking it. But yeah, it would have been nice to get the bench on that one.
Now you have a lot of difficulties going into that one, right? Injury wise in your body.
Oh yeah, man. It's probably my worst camp as far as that. Just dealing with shit. I had to. I always deal with back injuries, but that's been all right. It's been my knee was my main issue in this one. I got MRI. I got like a broken bone in my knee. I somehow did that. I don't know how. I have whatever is remaining of my meniscus because I had it taken out like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's all ripped up and inflamed and causing inflammation and locking. And then I have a Baker cyst or whatever I think that's what it's called, and that's causing inflammation and pain. And then I got an infection on top of that, which looked like it was gnarly looking, man. I've never seen anything like that. And
I saw the photos. Yeah.
see that, yeah,
Yeah.
and it looked like the Toxic Avenger. And
Yeah.
the doctors still don't know what it was.
It doesn't help that you're white too. Like if you're brown, at least
Right?
like, like whenever like my wife is white, so whenever she gets like a little knock on the skin and like her skin goes black, right? You're like, oh shit, what happened? She's like, I don't even know. But like a brown guy gets hit, you're like, oh, it's just darker brown there. It's a little
Hide
tan.
a bit more.
It's a little tan. He went tanning, right?
Exactly.
So I guess you're gonna have to take some time to kind of heal that stuff up and get all of that taken care of, right?
Yeah, so the infection, I was worried that I wasn't gonna be able to fight because it was like it kept spreading. It started on my knee and it just kept spreading, and but eventually, like fortunately, it went away about a week before the fight. It was pretty much. I still had it in the fight, but you can really tell.
Yeah.
But I went and got a cortisone shot in my knee just to kind of get me through because I did not want to pull it again.
No.
I missed my fight in April because of COVID. I got sick.
The one in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, in Hawaii, of course.
Yeah,
Well,
fucking.
thank goodness I would have
Yeah, I watched an
Uh,
interview where they're like, you gotta fight all these shitty places like North
bro.
Dakota, whatever. The
Yeah.
guy, the
My
guy,
my I've had 5 Bellator fights. My first one was Oklahoma, which, you know,
yeah,
Oklahoma,
whatever.
whatever. And then Connecticut, and then the pandemic was Connecticut. Supposed to be Hawaii. I get sick, can't fight, and then the next one's South Dakota. So it's like I get all the good places. They're going to like Italy, they're going to Ireland, they're going to
Yeah,
Hawaii, France, and then I get stuck with these ones.
it's a conspiracy. They don't like Josh Allen. They
Right?
don't get all that.
Yeah.
Now you've had because you've had such a long storied career. You've had the pleasure of fighting for a bunch of different organizations: Bellator,
Yeah.
World Series of Fighting, TKO. You did stint on the Ultimate Fighter too. Um, what to you was like the main difference between the organizations? Because like everyone always say UFC is the top uh, tier; they do the best. But from my experience and from knowing guys like we train with some of the similar guys, it's not necessarily the same thing on how you're treated, the pay structure, the production, and just basically the experience. So, in your opinion, which one of those, of all the ones that you had, gave you kind of the more memorable experiences?
Um, I mean, well, The Ultimate Fighter is kind of different, right? Because it's like it's a TV show, so it's hard
Yeah,
to compare that to anything else. It's unique. It's cool experience. Um, I'm glad I did it. I wish I did it at a different time. I wish I did it later in my career.
yeah,
But it was fun. You know, I'm happy I went through with it. Um, you know, World Series was just kind of in its infancy, and then they eventually turned into PFL, and I think
yeah,
they're kind of rolling now, and I think they're on a much better platform, and
yeah. They're
you
doing
know,
well right now. They're getting they're attracting a lot of guys because the pay structure
yeah,
is a lot different.
yeah, which is cool, and it's that season, which is different.
Yeah,
So it's just kind of cool. It's not just another promotion like a fight to fight
yeah,
type thing. Bellator production value is great. They pay really well. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I
yeah,
think that's a draw too. A lot of people are going to PFL and Bellator now instead of going to the UFC because pay, man.
yeah.
And I know so many fighters, especially young fighters, it's like only UFC, UFC, UFC,
Yeah.
UFC, right? Because it's just been ingrained in their heads for however long, and that's cool. I get you want to go like the most North American, known show for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
But at some point you gotta look at like, hey, like you're trying to make money doing this here, right? And
yeah.
you can't fight forever. You never know how long your career is gonna last. So don't always just go for the you know organization for notoriety's sake. Go for that's gonna put money in your pocket.
Yeah, there's a guy that I follow online. His name is Nomad Capitalist. He does like relocations for people like moving countries, but his motto is go to where you're treated best.
Yeah,
So I feel like that's something that the fight community and fighters in general should kind of adopt because, like you said, the it's always like oh UFC because it's the most well known in North America, but ONE FC treats fighters really, really well, pays really, really well, and I don't think you can top an experience like that. Like I love traveling in the states, but going to some of the places where they hold the shows in one, like you're not you got to pay lots of money to go on a vacation like that, right? And you're getting they're flying you out there, so I think it's a good lesson for people to kind of go where you're treated best and where you're treated fairly, where you feel like your value is, as opposed to just going somewhere because oh yeah, it's the UFC, right?
100%, man. And so I guess that's the combination. The best of both worlds is getting good pay and also treated, with respect and then treated like a high level athlete, which we are. And the thing with UFC now, it's like, man, there's just so many fighters. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And they have so many. Every week I see that contender series, like, oh, sign five more guys. And like, where are all these guys going, right? And that's
yeah.
why there's such a big backlog of guys not being able to fight, and that's why I think the individualism of fighters is kind of fading.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
that died with the sponsorship with the UFC.
Yeah, yeah,
That it was there was a point in time where I was excited to watch fights
mm,
just to see the entrance and what guys would wear. Like Mayhem Miller was one
yeah,
of them,
right,
or Tom Lawler, right?
yeah,
I'd be like, he's not the greatest fighter, but fucking hell, when he comes out, I'm entertained as shit,
yeah,
right? But
hundred
then
percent.
once the sponsorship came in and capitalism took over, which I'm a fan of capitalism, but it is what it is. In this sense, it didn't work out well
Right,
for the athletes, it kind of lost the individualism, right? Because I know that they were trying to make it like a major sports league, like professional, and everyone's wearing the same shit. But that's the part about martial arts; nobody's the same, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. And then that's I guess it'd be more like corporate based. They kind of went that way,
Yeah,
you know, and then just everybody looks the same, and I think that takes away from it. I like having that individual, that's where I came from. We probably started watching it back in the day when, yeah, like you said, Pride Days. I loved how they made the fighters like
yeah.
modern day warriors, gladiators, and like had the entrances like that were cool. That's what I like that shit, man. And you can call it like pro wrestling esque, but I think people like that shit, and they make a
People like
make a show of it.
they still do that in one. Like they have the
Yeah,
girl, they have the pretty girl doing the freaking DJing shit, and it's like you're like, wow, this is like a party. Like this is entertaining. Like it makes. I think it does two things. It makes the athletes more comfortable
hmm
because they can just be their own, right? And then secondly, it makes the fans a little less asshole-ish in the arena. Like
yeah,
when everything is so cut and dry, here's the music, here's the guy, here's the music, here's the guy. And then when the two guys get in the cage, if it's not a fan friendly fight, then the atmosphere is already hostile and they're like, fuck you, just stand them up. Like, no.
You know where I didn't even mention it, the place where I really enjoyed fighting was Russia.
Yeah.
Actually,
You fought for ACB out there, right?
no, it was Fight Nights Global was the
Okay.
promotion I fought for, and man, they were great. Like the show that they put on, it was like the production value. Like they had like people swinging from the rafters and like girls like playing like violin and like
Oh.
crazy entrances. It was cool, man. And they had like a rock band. Like they had a very very cool show. And then at the end, like they shot like glitter everywhere. Like it was
Yeah.
just the production value was so cool, and they treated their fighters great. Like, and they didn't. One crazy thing is they didn't serve alcohol at the venue.
Really?
So everybody there, I mean, there's pros and cons to that. I like
Yeah.
having a beer and watching fights for sure, but like you didn't have the other side of the extreme, like drunk, rowdy asshole that just causing shit, right?
Yeah.
And then like after the fights, it like I was Canadian going in there fighting a Russian, and like it took me like 20 minutes just to like leave the cage and get back to the locker room. People like want to like meet you, autographs and pictures and stuff like that. So they just love the fighting culture. So that was a really big pleasure to go there and fight for them.
Right, which is not something people hear about right now because of all the shit that's going on in the world. They're like, "Oh, you just said it's a pleasure in Russia. You must be an extremist."
Right? Yeah.
uh, uh, Now you've been doing martial arts for a super long time. Like I kind of like asking this to a lot of fighters because I like to see what they would do after fighting. Like, what is your most favorite aspect of martial arts that you would continue doing after your competition days are over?
um, I think about that a lot, man. I don't know. Like I would say I love to spar, right? I love
Yeah,
sparring, but
everyone
I
does.
wouldn't do it like I'm doing now,
Yeah,
because I try and save what brain cells I have left and be smart about it.
yeah,
But I would still spar. I just I do it less and I wouldn't go as hard. Obviously,
yeah.
I do like that. Just
Touch
playing
sparring like
around with
in
someone.
Thailand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'd always do that. I really enjoy that, and I love grappling. Wrestling. I do enjoy wrestling, but it's the fucking hardest for sure.
Yes, for
You
sure.
know what I mean? And it's hard on your body. So I don't know. I don't want to cut anything out. Really,
Yeah,
I really want to continue to do everything. But
but realistically, we wouldn't be able to do that. Like,
no,
like
no.
my answer will always be jujitsu. Like,
Yeah.
I can study. Like, there will be days where I can roll for like 10 rolls, 11 rolls, but
Mhm.
it's an art where I can show up the next day. I don't have to roll. I can just drill
Right.
technique. My
Yeah.
body will be sore. Like you said, though, I'll still always spar,
Yeah.
but not in the same brain cell to decapitating way.
Yeah. 100%, man. I think that'll and I think I have a built-in aggression that I have to release, and that
Oh,
helps
for
with it.
sure, for sure.
Rolling does too, for sure, but like nothing like sparring that really gets that out.
Well, which art do you get in your flow state the most? Like individual art, not mixed martial arts.
Sparring.
Sparring.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure.
kickboxing is your flow state. Like that's where you zone out.
Yes. Yeah, I would say that, and probably and the second would be grappling.
Yeah,
you're just gonna roll through with things. So I would say those two things would probably be what I'll do the longest. All these
yeah.
back and forth, striking and stuff like that, and then grappling. Wrestling would probably be cut
Yeah,
out just
yeah.
because it's how hard it is on my body.
Oh, it's grinding. Like I find that uh the problem with wrestling is the up and down and the pounding you take from going onto the mat all the time. So
100%.
so something I noticed that I handle better than other people is because I have a bigger body type. Like I have the cushion, so to speak, to fall to fall down every time. Where I see some of the guys that are leaner,
Yeah,
they'll get like weird hip bruises and kind of stuff like that from the constant break falling on the mats and the constant takedowns.
for
Do you,
sure.
do you find that that's your kind of something that happens to you at your weight class?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And especially with wrestling, I think it's like you have another guy, you're carrying his weight sometimes, and you can't control it. Like with you're just doing like squats or something like that, you can control the weight and where it
Yeah,
goes. But when you're getting under somebody's hips and they're sprawling out on you, it's like all that weight on your back, and you can't really manipulate where you want to, put that weight. Ideally because he's moving. So I think that's where a lot of the injuries happen, things like that. And then obviously when somebody's wrenching on your neck and
oh
snapping
yeah,
you down,
the neck is the
um,
worst.
yeah,
The other day, my wife was driving and she said, "Oh, my neck is sore. I can't even look one way." I'm like, "That's like every night after she does
every
it."
day I like
Yeah,
change lanes like this.
I'll get to the gym and I'll be like, "Okay, I'm changing," and then I'll leave the gym like, "Fuck," or that's how I got good at using my mirrors.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have to.
yeah. Now you've been fighting so long. You've had what, over 30? Is it 30 fights you've had?
I've had 26.
So you're coming close to 30,
Yeah.
right? Now that is rough on any fighter. Just 10, 5, like
Yeah.
financially. Like not we're not talking about the wear and tear on your body. Like for a lot of people that don't know, fighting doesn't pay well, especially at the start.
Yeah.
And even if you do get to that long career point, it still doesn't pay that well. How do you kind of make that balance, keeping your guys like you have a family, you have a wife, you have kids? How do you kind of make that balance where you have to sacrifice so much money because you have to travel sometimes? Because I know you do some camps in Alpha Male.
Yeah.
Do you invest? What do you do to kind of make sure that you know outside of the cage, Josh Hill's life is kind of taken care of?
Um, yeah, you're right. It's tough, man. You don't make much money in the sport unless you're at the highest level. Um, it, I've always had another job as I've come up. You know what I mean? I've never just fought
Yeah.
ever until recently, and even now, I'm not just fighting. Still, really, I'm doing other things as well. But yeah, I've always had a part-time job coming up, and then I opened a gym in 2016. But again, anything with the gym business, you're not
Not
making money for
profitable.
the first while.
No,
You know what
no.
I mean? And especially a fighter gym, you're not making money. You need a recreational gym to make some money. But I've always done other things. I've been pretty good with my money. I'm cheap, I guess. I'm not,
You're
buying.
brown. You're brown by heart.
Yeah, I'm not buying $3,000 suits and fancy watches and things like that. I have a rental property. I think real estate is probably one of the best investments you can do, and that's something I want to continue to do.
Yeah.
I was fortunate when I met my wife; she already had a home as well, so
Okay.
we kind of had two homes coming together. So that's been a pro for sure. But um, but yeah, it's tough, man. Like you're gonna have to do something else, and you're gonna have to do something else most likely after you're done fighting too.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's kind of the phase where I'm entering, where it's like I'm trying to set things up for after I'm done because I don't want to just be done one day and have nothing. You know what I mean? 'Cause that's my biggest
Which
fear.
is the problem with a lot of guys. They put all their eggs into one basket, right?
And I get you kind of have to be able to
Yes,
go
you
to
do.
the highest level, right? So it's very difficult, man. That's why it's if you're not 100% committed to this, you're not going to make it to those, the upper echelon of the sport. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you got to balance trying to have something else to.
But there are guys who have had like look at there's two good examples. Shane Carwin. He was a full time engineer and still
Yeah,
made it to the pinnacle of the sport. And then Stipe Miocic, who's still a full time firefighter and still one of the best in the world. So like you can do it. So like I think that sometimes it's a bit of a cop out for certain athletes. Or I just want to focus on fighting only. And yes, they might do super well, but I feel like it hampers them in other aspects of their life. And then when it's over, like I was listening to Ian McCall, like he's like when he was done fighting, he just wanted to kill himself,
Right.
where because that became your total identity. So like for the 3 or 4 hours you're training in the gym all day, that's your whole identity, which is not. You're only in the gym for a select amount of time of the day. What are you doing with the other hours, right? Are you bettering yourself somehow, or are you coming up with something else that you can do, right? So I
Mm.
think that's something that I feel like it's a cop out sometimes that they use it. So a lot of people use it to justify why they don't want to do more work, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely those people. I think that's true. But I think it's like when you're trying to do this as your job and make this a career,
Yeah,
it's like you go to the gym in the morning, you train for 2 hours, you come home, you rest, you recover, you eat, then you go back to the gym for another however many hours, and by the time the whole day is done, and it's probably like an 8 hour day,
yeah,
right? So that's like a full time job, right? So I think it's wouldn't bat an eye to somebody else that's doing that at an office job.
no, you
That's
wouldn't.
just what they do every day. They're not trying to better. Well, I'm sure some people are, which I hope they are, but
Yeah,
they're not trying to better themselves or get set up another career outside of their job. And I think fighters think that way too. The mistake they make is they think they can do this forever, or
yeah,
they think eventually, I'll figure it out later. I'll figure it out later. Um, but yeah, that I remember saying the same shit.
yeah.
I remember like,
It's
and
the
now I'm
same.
35 years old, and it's like I'm entering that time where it's like getting towards the end of my career, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
yeah, it goes by fast. I gotta say that. I remember being the young guy in the gym and like being like 24, and all these guys are in their early 30s that I'm training with, and they were the old guys, and they're telling me, you'll get there soon, you'll
yeah.
see. And now I'm there, and yeah, it
And
goes by fast.
and I feel like that too because like me and you have talked before, which we'll get to in a second about your other business that you do. But I've had so many injuries where like when I was 25, I was relatively injury free, and then
Right.
as soon as we decided to turn professional, it's like here, bam, 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 surgery, whatever, right? And like for a good 3 or 4 years, I still held on to that little notion in my head where I still, once I'm done with this surgery and I'm recovered, I'm gonna be the best and fucking train all day, and then it hits you. You don't have any control over it, too, right?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of the things that happened in my example, which everyone's examples are different, but my examples were freak accidents, right?
Yeah.
Which happen in the sport, and then some guys, those accidents happen. They're only out for a month or two. Unfortunately for me, it was a while, right? But then there are there's also the other examples of people like me as well who have those injuries, have to take significant time off, but because our brains are not bashed in their 20s, they're able to have longer, successful careers into their 40s, right? Randy
Right.
Couture, look at who's that beast? He's in Bellator now. Yoel Romero, right?
Yeah.
Right, because he didn't start really competing MMA until his mid early 30s, right? So
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there is that trade off too, right? It is a sport. It's not like the NFL. It's not where you're 3 years and done.
Yeah, and the difference being your 3 years, you probably made more money than any MMA player, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's fine. You can live off that probably 3 years for the rest of your life, or at least invest it properly where you can, make your money.
yeah.
But with us, man, like you said, you got injured, you can get shit.
I didn't
You
get shit. I
know
didn't
what
get
I mean?
shit.
Same with me. When I get injured, it's like you don't get paid,
No.
and that's the biggest hurdle. And that's where I think like you talk about fighter pay and all that shit. Where sure everybody wants more fighter pay, but I'd rather have more guaranteed that like I'm making a salary.
Yes.
So then you can just focus on fighting as a career. That's your job. And if you do get hurt, which their chances are pretty high,
Yeah.
that you're actually taken care of.
Now, what do you think about a union? That's always been talked of. I'm very mixed on it because when I see examples from real life, like business world, unions are very sneaky,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to generalize this because I know there are some unions for different things that do take care of their employees and do take care of. But at the end of the day, a lot of the unions are funneling money. A lot of guys are taking money from those unions to benefit themselves and not benefit the employees.
Right.
Which is why I think a lot of fighters are apprehensive about it.
Mhm.
What is your thoughts on that? Because it's been talked about for years. A couple people have tried it. hasn't come to fruition, do you think it's ever going to happen?
If I had to pick, I'd be all for it. Yes, I would be. I think you're gonna have a corruption at every single thing you do
Yeah.
in the sport in life. There's always gonna be people that just kind of ruin it for others. So you're gonna have to deal with that. But I think it's better off with that than how it is now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like if you want to go UFC for example, how much money they're making. If they weren't making as much as they were, then I wouldn't be harping on getting higher fighter pay.
Yeah.
But when you see the pie is growing and growing and growing, you should get a bigger piece of that pie as well,
Yeah.
right? And what's the entry levels now? Is it still like 12 and 12 for
I thought I thought UFC was 10.
10 and 10? Yeah, it
Yeah.
might still be. It's one or the other, but still, man, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
yeah.
to,
Like
to, that,
for all of my pro fights, the limited amount that I've had, I've spent at least 5 to 6 thousand just getting ready for it.
right?
Between the extra sessions with coaches, food, nutrition, supplements, extra travel to different places to train, like it doesn't even cover the cost of the preparation, right?
You know.
And then where there's that guaranteed bullshit, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like oh, you get 10 to show, but if you win, who the fuck's not trying to win, right?
Yeah, I'm so against that, man. That pisses me off more than everybody's like, "Oh yeah, an incentive to win." Type, no bullshit. If I always said to somebody, if somebody said, "Okay, you can get like 50 grand to show, 50 grand to win," say, or they said you can take 75,000 bucks, 100% like guaranteed money,
Yeah.
I would take that.
Oh yeah,
Because
for sure.
there's so many chances and so many factors of ways to lose in the sport.
Especially decisions, right?
Yeah, like you get a decision where we've seen robberies all day long. It's happening. You get cut. You know what I mean? An accidental headbutt, a no contest. It turns into you get a DQ. You blow your knee out in the first round. You after even if you're winning.
You blow
So
your
there's
knee
so
out
many,
warm ups. Some guys get hurt in warm ups and they can't
right?
fight, right?
Yeah, there's so many variables, and so it does not. Another reason why it doesn't benefit the fighters. So yeah, man, I'm all for that. I think you should, like I said, this is my views. If you sign to a major organization, you get a yearly salary. You know what I mean? For just say it's 100 grand, whatever. You get 100 grand for that year. So there you go. You're guaranteed that 100 grand, so you can not work or whatever you want, just focus on that, and that's guaranteed money. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And in that time, you get offered your fights. You have to accept a certain amount of fights or whatever, and you get bonuses for those fights. So you get an extra, for this fight, you make an extra whatever, 30,
So
50.
so you're proposing okay, so it's a base salary. So say you're a beginner, new to the organization, so it's maybe 50K, right? And then under that contract, you might have to fight 2 or 3 times in the year. But for those 2 or 3 fights, instead of it being fluctuating pay, you say you get 15 to show, 15 to win, right? Something like that. Or so the pay would actually be lower, but you have a base salary. So at the end of the year, there's potential you can clear over 100 as a beginner, right? If you
Yeah,
win, but you still are able to cover cost of living, so to speak, with the
yeah.
base salary.
I would do something like that. I'd do the base salary, you're guaranteed. Then for your fight, you're getting 15, or I just saying, throwing numbers out there, you're getting $15,000, and then there's another. You get a finish, another 10 grand.
Yeah,
So you want to do an incentivize. There's an incentive, right?
yeah.
But you're still guaranteed that money, and then of course the bigger names will make more money per fight, like a
Yeah.
Conor or whatever.
Well, that's a different proposal to what has been already been out there. I think one of the apprehensions people have is paying into the union, right? Because as you know as well as I do, there's a lot of bums out there who don't train hard, who just take fights on a day's notice.
Yeah,
Have you ever looked up a guy's record and you'd be like, he's like 2-30. You're like, who the fuck,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then, but I think a lot of people feel like those people aren't entitled to that piece of the pie. Do you think?
right.
Do you think because they're not taking it as seriously as the people who even if we've seen fighters who are great fighters with even records, right? But if you have a certain record, do you think that that should reflect if you're eligible for that?
It gets dicey there for sure. Because then, then you're going to, well, you get this anyway now, but you're going to have somebody that fights 20 of those guys that you just mentioned,
Yeah,
20-0 and fought, literally no one, just to get into the union or whatever it is. That's a tough call for sure. I don't think it should be I don't think a guy that's 1-0 should be getting the same as somebody that's in the sport for however long and has put in the time and work and you know years. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe as monks, like the top of the heap, if you're signed with a major organization,
Yeah.
this could happen, something like that. I don't know. It would be it's difficult, man. Every way you look
Yeah.
at it, there's hurdles.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it's something that has to happen in the future, but I think it's got a long way to go before it actually comes to
I'll be
fruition.
yeah, I'll be
Uh,
long retired before if that ever
oh yeah,
happens.
for sure. And I think the only way it comes to fruition is if the organization heads start to bend to it, right? Because they're very resistant to it, because obviously it affects their bottom line.
Um,
But the only way that kind of happens is if they're receptive of it. I don't think there's any other way, right?
yeah,
It's kind of like women's MMA. At first, Dana was like, "No, women will never fight in the UFC," and then he said, "Fuck it, fight." Finally, Ronda comes along, right? So it's good. And it's unfortunate. There might have to be something really terrible that has to happen
yeah,
before that kind
yeah.
of security has to happen. I mean, it's happened in
Might be
boxing,
right.
right? Now I wanted to shift gears a little bit because there's something that you do on the side, another business that you have with mental coaching,
Yeah,
which I've taken advantage of. So shout out to you, thank you for that. And
yeah.
Cerebro Champion, um, what kind of got you into? I know you've done interviews on that kind of stuff before, so I don't want to like redo it. But what kind of got you into wanting to make it like a business and really pursue it?
Well, just kind of talking about what we've just been talking about, like
Yeah,
something after fighting. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I don't want to just have like be that fighter that has nothing after he's done and has nothing to show for it and has to go work at Walmart. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that guy.
yeah,
So I just it was something that I always struggle with. My whole career, up until I don't know, my late 20s, maybe 30, that I always had dealt with performance anxiety. I did
yeah,
not perform like I could potentially, like I do in the gym. I don't showcase all my skills, and that was due to just nerves, anxiety, fears, all these things that I didn't know how to deal with. And one day I was injured. I was had an injury, and I just like I'm just gonna work on this shit while I can, while I have downtime. And I started reading books. The first book I read was Mind Gym, which
okay,
is still
yeah,
one of my favorites. And I just kind of I just it sparked an interest in me that I really got fascinated with, and I just started reading more and more. And I went back to school. I went to an online school, and it took me about a year and a half to get that done.
yeah.
And yeah, man. Then I started just opened up my own practice, Cerebral Champion, and I've worked with I don't even know how many people I've worked with now, 20 something people, maybe 30 now. And yeah, it's going well. I'm getting good positive feedback, and I enjoy helping people because I know what it's like.
Yeah.
I've been in those shoes.
Now, do you see this being like something that you're gonna do very long term and kind of build off of it and make it something like Josh Hill's Cerebral Champ? That's what you're gonna be known for after
I
fighting.
hope so. I there's not one thing I want to do. I don't want to do
Yeah,
one thing the rest of my life. You know what I mean? I really
yeah, I know
don't.
what you mean. Yeah,
So that is one thing I would like to do, and like to build it up to a level where I can make an actual living on it for sure.
yeah.
And I enjoy being my own boss. I can't go back to working for people now,
No,
man.
no, me neither. Me
It
neither.
sucks. I hate it. So that's something I can schedule my own thing and work around. I can work from home, or I can work from anywhere doing
Yeah,
that. So I really like that, and I want to build it up. But yeah, there's other things I want to do. I still want to be involved with MMA. I
yeah,
do love it. So whether that's I do commentary for BTC.
yeah.
That's something I'd like to expand on more of. I would like to maybe get into the management side of things because I coach a few guys now and kind of manage them as well, and
Yeah.
I do enjoy getting people opportunities and things like that. So and I have enough connects in the world now in MMA world, so that those are things I want to do, and I could see myself doing after I'm done.
Well, and you've had the blessing of being able to travel to so many different places too. Like
Right.
your career hasn't always been like mine has only been in the Canada and the U.S., but you have been able to travel different places and build those connections too, right?
Yeah, man. I've been really fortunate, and even when, like every time I go to Alpha Male too to train out there, I meet somebody from somewhere else. Like I have
Yeah,
friends in France and Ireland and Switzerland and England, all over the place now. So Tokyo. So like
yeah,
it's I've been fortunate. I got to meet a lot of people, and I've traveled to Brazil to train. I fought in Romania, I fought in Russia, all through the states and Canada. Yeah, man, it's been good.
Now, do you only want to work with athletes with that business, or are you working with regular folk who also deal with performance anxiety, say for a big business meeting or a big presentation that they have to do, a conference, something like that to perform at, where they're not necessarily used to doing something like that?
Right. Originally I was just kind of focused on athletes, but I do have actually a friend he's not an athlete, and he hit me up about it, and then
Yeah,
we started talking, and and it works both ways. It works in every avenue of your life, whether that's in a boardroom or whether that's on the field or in the cage or whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely open to working with people of all walks of life because I think it can correlate to across the board.
All right, and I'm gonna even shift gears now even more because I know this is this. You've been shadow banned on Instagram a lot, a lot. So have I. For different things that are going on, and I wanted to talk to you about this
Yeah.
because fighting is one thing, but like we said, life is there's so
If
many
I
things.
if I post this, nobody's gonna see it because
Yeah,
I can't see my shit.
yeah. Uh, Now you've been kind of vocal about some of the stuff that's going on, and I wanted to get kind of some feedback of like when you got COVID earlier, and you because you actually had to publicly kind of declare it because you had to pull out of the fight, and
Yeah.
obviously they published that. Did you get any hate from people being like, oh, because of your stance of how you were, and like I want to clarify, you weren't. None of us are anti-COVID or whatever fucking anti-label they want to put on us. We were just more against the certain direction that has been taken during
100%.
this time. Did you get any pushback from people being like, "Hey, fuck you! I got COVID now. I hope you like, cause like, I hope you suffer."
I actually I did not get much, to be honest. I thought I was gonna get a bunch of people, kind of chirping a little bit, but
Yeah,
it was more in jokingly. People were like, "Oh, yep, see, shouldn't have talked to you about vaccines and thing." But no, it wasn't too bad. And like I said to everyone, like you just kind of clarified, like I'm not an anti-vaxxer. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I'm not an anti-medicine. I'm not, and any of this shit. I'm anti, taking away people's freedoms and rights and making mandates and all that bullshit,
yeah.
100%. And that's where I've been very, very outgoing on that. But yeah, as far as that, nah, I thought more people will kind of
They,
shoot on.
yeah, they would hate on you a little bit, right? But so, uh, being shadow banned and all that, because I know you've posted about it. Like, um, how does that affect your ability to just communicate like business, like your brand, right? Because
Yeah. Well,
like we said, individuality is important, especially in MMA, but just in general. How does it affect you? Like, I wouldn't say financially, but how does it affect you to not be able to just be able to show people who Josh Hill is, really, like your real personality and that kind of stuff?
if I didn't do what I do for a living, if I worked at whatever, just some office job, and I probably wouldn't even have social media, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
I don't give a shit about it. But as far as what I do, unfortunately, in the world we live in now, 2022, it's all about following, popularity,
yeah,
and all this shit. And who's making the most noise? And so, and even sponsorship wise, like they right away they look at your followers now. Like
yeah,
it's not even who you are as an athlete. It's, oh, he's got 50,000 followers. Okay, perfect. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So in that sense, it hurts me big time. And now it's hurting me even more
yeah,
because I'm covered up. Even like when you talked about that video, my up elbow that went viral, they posted. I wasn't even tagged in that. I don't think. Like um, when it says like,
yeah. Josh,
I think I was tagged in it, but I wasn't. Like it didn't show my actual full thing because I think when you type in my name, or at least it might be gone now, but when you type it in, like if you type in the first couple of letters, usually it pops up. You have to type in my full name, and sometimes even that people couldn't find.
yeah. Same with me, and that like
You know?
uh we like from the podcast, I've been getting super good responses on my metrics that I have, but then it doesn't reflect on social media because it'll be like if I
Right.
was to post a story and it was a controversial story, I talked about vaccines or jabs or whatever, um, they would shadow ban me. So I'd get like 10 story views.
Yeah.
Whereas I posted something like with my kids, like 3 or 4 days later, and I would get like 400, 500. I'm like,
Yeah. See.
oh, what? That doesn't make any sense there,
Yeah. I
right?
had the same shit, man. Same shit. I'm just like, I even hate saying it, but like likes, like however many likes you get on the thing, it's like,
Yeah,
I don't have that big of a following. I don't like 3 or 4 thousand people, whatever it is. But like it would be like, oh yeah, you get like 200 likes, 150 likes, and then my other post would be like 12,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's like, how does that make any sense? Something's wrong there, right?
Well, and it is a form of censorship. And it is happening, and that's why I want to talk about it because people need to know that it's happening. Like if you
Buddy, you
don't,
couldn't even when sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
when you tag me and shit,
yeah.
it's like, are you sure you want to tag Josh Hill? That's what he says. Or even if you try to follow me,
Yeah.
it puts up a warning. It says, "Are you sure you want to follow
I bet
Jen
you,
Michelle?"
I bet you, the direction we're headed, people
Yeah,
like us, our accounts will be have like a red check mark next to it as like the extremist check mark,
probably.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
probably.
And then and that I bet you that what's gonna start happening, right?
Yeah.
Well, even like if you look this past weekend, the hashtag Trudeau must go trending on Twitter, and then last night they removed it from the trending list because it was doing too much, right?
So
So
crazy, man.
right, and like I don't even use Twitter that much. I just somebody told me, hey, put a post up. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then the hate, like Twitter is probably the most toxic environment. I don't
Yeah,
use it very often. I
I
open it
don't either.
once a month, maybe to post something for the podcast. It is the most toxic social media platform on the planet. Like,
Yeah,
if you spend your time on Twitter, you have no life because it's just fun. You're just being attacked, and if you respond back, these I don't even know who if they're real people or not, but and it's illogical arguments and like
yeah,
that shit can consume your life and make you fucking crazy. And like
yeah.
Twitter is one of the most disgusting places on the internet.
And misery. Yeah, I got rid. I took a social media break for a while, and which was good.
Yeah,
But like I said, what I do, it's kind of hard not to with social media. But when I came back to Twitter, the other things, Instagram and Facebook came back fine. But when I went back to my Twitter, I think I had like same thing, like 3 or 4 thousand followers when I deleted it.
yeah.
And when I came back after 30 days, it wipes you out.
Oh,
So I had to start again at zero. So I just said, fuck it. I just
yeah. Now, where this you've had the ability to travel outside of this country because of your because if you had fights like you said in Connecticut and stuff like that. But it's hard for people to kind of grasp this because some people haven't traveled.
yeah.
How different is it in the U.S. than in Canada in terms of just the response to COVID and your experience of being able to just leave the country?
Man, going into the States, it like it felt like I was like jailbreaking. Honest to God, you know what I mean? I'm like,
Yeah,
I walk up to the thing and I'm like on the wall and they shine that light on you, like and but then when I get through, it's like, oh, I made it. Like I shouldn't have to feel that way. You
yeah,
know what I mean? When I'm trying to leave and come back to my country, going to the States was fine. It's been easy.
yeah,
And speaking with I have some people that a couple of border agent friends too, and they're fed up with all this shit too. Like they hate doing this. They hate all the changes every week. And by going to the states guys, they're like they don't give a shit. Man. They're like they're done with this. They're over it. I was fortunate enough that I go and I have a working visa, so I can go into the states.
yeah.
I'm deemed essential, which is part
It's just fucking stupid, right?
Oh my God. Like it's so crazy how you can say somebody's essential and somebody's not. To me, that's just insanity. Everybody's trying to make a living and put food on the table. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So that's crazy. But yeah, it's and then coming back to Canada, man, like it's like some of those people it's just like they enjoy like power tripping for sure, but they enjoy making your life difficult to do this. Like I fortunately haven't had any real issues, but I know a lot of people that have been fined. I got one buddy that was fined like 12 grand. You know what I mean?
for just
And
coming home, for just coming
just
home.
coming home. You know what I mean? Just going to your house, and if whether like you've already done a test and like they want you to do another test, or if they want you to isolate, like it's so crazy. And they're still doing this stuff, which is
Yeah.
nuts.
Well, here's where I want to see things go because last night, God help him, Joe Biden did a fucking interview on 60 Minutes and it was terrible. If you can't see the mental decline, you're a fucking
Yeah.
moron.
Blinders, man. People put
Bli-
blinders.
yeah, if you don't see the mental decline, you're a fucking moron. I'm saying that to the camera right now. You're a fucking moron. But he declared the pandemic over. He said the fucking pandemic is over. So I'm interested in seeing. Well, the U.S. said that. Let's see what uh, Justin dipshit Trudeau goes
Yeah.
along with now, because if the U.S. is pushing that narrative and the Democrats are pushing that narrative, there's not much leeway he has in order to keep things going the way it's going here.
Right.
Um, like like you said, it's like you feel like a prisoner in your own country, where you get out and you're like, fuck, right? I think a lot of Canadians feel that regardless of if they took the jab or not, right? Because I know
Yeah.
a lot of people who quote quote did the right thing and aren't extremists, and they're fed up with the bullshit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people took it under pressure, under force, and they
For
didn't
sure.
want to. They didn't want to do that.
Majority.
Yeah, and they're fed up with the bullshit. So I'm interested to see how this kind of plays out, because when the U.S. says that, especially a Democratic president, right? There's not much leeway Trudeau has to keep going the way he's going. You know what
Now, as my conspiracy theorist mind will
I mean?
take over, and I think you can only push an agenda for so long until people either clue in or they've had enough of it, and then a resistance forms. So, what I think might happen, maybe, is they're going to transition from COVID to everything's climate control change.
Climate change, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have to do certain things or can't do certain things that are going to, regulate that, or else you're bad for the environment. You're not
Well, I
respectful.
don't know if you saw the article. I forgot where it posted it. But they were blaming climate change for increase in lack of activity for kids or
Yeah.
people outside. Like, are you fucking moronic or stupid? Like, what do you say? You're saying it's getting so horribly warm outside, kids
Yeah.
can't go and exercise.
Yeah.
Last time I checked in fucking Canada, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
And last time I checked in Canada, that would make every child happy as fuck. They're like, oh, it's not freezing -30. I'm going outside to fucking play with my friends.
No
Right?
shit.
The logic behind it doesn't make sense. And I think you're right. I don't think you're a conspiracy theorist at all. Right? It's and we're gonna go viral for that shit. I'm gonna post. You're not. I see the cues that are happening. And they did it. They did it. They tried to do it earlier on in the year with the Ukraine war. It didn't work out. People I wouldn't say gave up on that, but they kind of didn't buy into that. And
Yeah.
and like you'll see it every 3, 4, 5 weeks. And Fox News is guilty of this too. They're all guilty of it. They'll push like, oh, World War III is coming. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's a potential, but don't fucking do a whole news piece on it and try to scare people, right?
Yeah. Scare tactics, man. I don't watch any news, any mainstream news anyway, because I just, even whether it's right or left, I don't
Yeah,
care. Just because it's just bullshit, man. It's nonsense. It's just I I I don't know. I have family members that I've been definitely been the black sheep for the family
yeah,
for the last during this shit, especially in the earlier times when I was really resistant of all that nonsense. And they're just like, I've had friends, family, acquaintances, everybody just saying like, man, just do it just do it, just because then your life's easier. Just do it because then you can, do this, you can travel. Just do it. And it's like, no, man, it's not about that. It's like, I shouldn't have to just do anything because of being told to do it.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, like it just, we in January of last year, me and my wife took the kids and we lived in Florida for a month.
yeah.
And man, like the people, I mean, there's still people there that care about it, and like they want to wear a mask, wear your mask, whatever you want. I don't agree with it, but if you want to do it, cool. But it was just like the freedom to do what you want, right? And that's ultimately what everybody wants. And so it was just like coming back into Canada after being there. It was like, fuck,
What the
yeah,
fuck? Now,
yeah.
now after experiencing that and being back here, do you see Canada as somewhere where you're gonna continue to want to live if it continues down this path?
Buddy, if I did not have children, I'd already be gone. If it
Oh
was just me and my wife, I'd already be gone.
yeah,
Um, you know, yeah, I would like to leave here, to be honest, of Ontario. The main thing that's keeping me here is my family, of course. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
same.
I don't want to just leave all of my parents and siblings and things like that. which sucks. If my wife could get a job elsewhere, that would be ideal. I also do have a stepson,
Yeah,
here. So, and with his dad, his situation, that, it's hard to deal with that as well. So it's not as easy just to,
pick up
pack
and
up
go.
and go.
Yeah,
But ideally, yes, I would much rather be living. There's a couple places we've been looking at that I would really like to go to,
yeah. And
because I've had it with Ontario.
we're in the same boat. Like we've given ourselves a timeline,
Yeah,
next which is next fall, and you know, our both for both me and my wife, our heart is set on this is not going to be our final. Like we're not going to be here forever, right? And it's shitty to say this, but like the pandemic opened my eyes up to a lot of the flaws that we have here, and
right.
it doesn't need to be necessarily political, but a lot of the flaws. Like one of the things I just did some research on, like everyone's all upset. Oh, I don't think ever because most people I talk to don't give a fuck about the Queen dying and all that kind of shit, right?
Yeah,
Um, so I for the first time I've actually did some like digging of like what's the difference between democracy, monarchy, and like a republic, right? And I actually found out that the difference is that when you have a democracy, monarchy like Canada does, and a lot of the Commonwealth places, the majority outrules the minority, so the minority never gets a say if the majority rules. Whereas in a republic, that's not the sense. That's not the case because the majority, whatever they want, can't overturn the Constitution. So, like the U.S. is a great example of it, and why, as flawed as they are, people can't be taken advantage of because
right.
you can say, "I want to mandate this, this, and this, this, and this, and take away your guns and all that kind of stuff," but the God-given rights under the Constitution are protected for the minority, whereas in Canada that's not the case. So when I did my research and found that out, I'm like, well,
Mm,
maybe I want to live somewhere where it's more of a republic,
right.
democracy, right? Then set and build my base and foundation the next 30, 40 years of my life where I'm going
Yeah.
to make the most money I'm ever going to make and set up my retirement and all that somewhere where if a majority of people say fuck you, Ashton, majority of people say fuck you, Ashton, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel exactly the same way, and I feel like what is best for my kids' futures. And I don't think it's here, man.
Yeah.
And setting aside the restrictions and mandates and being a very authoritarian place for a long time here and during this pandemic, uh, um, the cost of living is crazy. The housing is insane. Good luck to anybody that's under
I've been
25 getting
I've been
a house,
priced I've been priced out. I've been priced
right? Yeah,
out.
that's what I mean.
And we have money. It's not like we can't. But I don't want to be house poor.
Yeah, yeah, and just like the amount of people here, the trying to get a job here, the weather sucks. I mean, um,
Yeah.
I yeah, there's just been I've had a lot of family members that were from here, like me, born and raised in Hamilton, and they moved away and they came back for a time being and they couldn't take it. They left again,
Yeah.
and I always kind of wondered why, and now I understand. And I'll ask you this about like because you said about the states. Um, when you were when you were brought up in school and life and whatever, were you always kind of like told like Canada's a better place? You're lucky you live in Canada. The States is gun crazy and it's just nuts, and Canada's the politest place to be, and it's kind of like Canada's better than the States.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
And it's a narrative that was pushed on me for so long,
yeah,
and
same.
and then I kind of like woke up to it. I'm like, when they say that the American dream, and you're like, well, why? And then
Yeah,
you start critically thinking. The why is because it's the freest place on the planet, despite its flaws, right?
yes,
And also, people don't recognize, like the Canadian government likes to do this a lot on both sides, conservatives and fucking liberals. They like to use statistics from the U.S. to compare to Canada, but the
yeah,
population sizes
10 times. Yeah,
10, 15. It's way different. There's so many more people in the U.S. than there is here. But the fact that all culture, all modern day culture comes from the US. Like,
yeah.
and Joe Rogan was talking. I forgot he was talking about this with some comedians from the UK. It's the fact that
I listened to that one. I like those guys. That was
yeah,
a good one.
you know who I'm talking about, right? I forgot their names, but it's the fact that in the US you have the freedom to do what you want.
Mhm.
So because of that, because for example, let's look at comedy. I can tell a racist joke about a fucking brown guy, a black guy, whatever, and it's viewed as comedy. Whereas
Mhm.
in the UK, it's frowned upon. Or in like Canada now, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not an inclusive fucking joke, right? So, uh, the United States gives creators and artists and athletes and everyone the freedom to be creative, and that's why most of the culture that you see around the world is adopted from American culture, right? A lot, and like
100%.
look at Canada. Look at some of the biggest shows on TV. I don't even fucking watch. I don't have network television. I don't have cable. But
Yeah.
Canada's Got Talent. Canada's Next Best Singer. Those
Yeah.
are all American-based television shows.
Canadian Idol.
Yeah, that you're just ripping off. And
Yeah.
so then we just go and tell kids, "Oh, you don't want to be in the U.S." Well, then
Yeah.
why are we ripping off their culture? I brought this up to Belinda Carahalios, the girl who runs the Ontario New Blue. I didn't think I got anywhere with that, but I was like, I was a football player coming up. I didn't tell myself I wanted to go play for UFT, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I want to go play in the NCAA. I
Yeah.
didn't want to. We're so hellbound on saying that Canada is better than the U.S. in all these different ways, and in some ways it is. I'm not hating on. I love Canada, um, but why do we want to export talent so much then? Why do we send doctors over I know 3 or 4 doctors, high profile doctors, who left Canada to go there for better pay,
Yeah.
and for better access to better equipment and medicine and being able to further their research other than in Canada. So
Yeah.
we're so hellbound on criticizing the U.S., yet we don't give them the credit they deserve when they actually are doing some very positive things. Well,
100%. There's a reason why they're the most, sought out place to be for immigration. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They let in the most immigrants anywhere in the world every year. Um, listening to, and I'll say his name, and everybody will be like, "Oh, you're right wing bigot." Now it's like I was listening to Steven Crowder a lot.
yeah, I like him. I like him.
Yeah, I like him too. I think he's funny, and I think he's logical in most things. I agree with not everything, but a lot of the things with him.
Yeah.
And he was saying he's Canadian. I didn't know he was Canadian.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't know that either. No.
yeah, he was born and raised in Quebec, and he left Canada, and he just talked exactly what we talked about, seeing all the things. He was kind of told that the U.S. is you don't want to go there, you don't want to do this. Canada's a better place, and kind of listed all the things that what the liberties that you have in the states and the amendments and all the things like that you don't have, and how why do we still have, speaking of the Queen, why do we still have this monarchy? Why is this still a big thing? Why do we still have to earn our money? And be like, oh, because we came from Britain, but like the states fought their way out of that. We didn't,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I respect that. You know what I mean? They literally fought for their freedom.
Yeah. And people are gonna give me flack for this. I'm gonna say this because I don't give a shit. That's why it's called Grants McGill. I say Kings of Grants McGill. But like we sit here and I know her funeral's today and everyone's probably gonna be, oh, praise the Queen. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about her in general because I don't know her, so I can't criticize the person. But there are photos of the family shaking hands with Hitler. There is evidence that they're responsible for
Yeah.
slavery, right?
Yeah.
There's countless atrocities. Like, look at Prince Andrew. Motherfucker was on Epstein Island raping
Yeah.
little girls, and now he's in a fucking car driving around like he's some. Like, those are like immediate red flags. And I think it is the so called king now. He's on the World Economic Forum preaching one world governments, one world militaries, one world this. There will be more pandemics. And then we have Pierre Poilievre hailing the king in his fucking acceptance piece. Right?
Wow.
I thought you were anti WEF, Pierre. Why are you
Yeah.
hailing somebody who's in the fucking WEF? Right?
I
So
I agree. I like that kind of threw me off there. I do like Pierre what he says
yeah,
anyway.
same.
He does a lot of the things he's saying. And like I said about the Queen, anytime anybody loses a family member, I feel for the family and friends
Yeah.
of the people. I'm not, that's not cool.
No,
Like,
we're all human, right? We're all
yeah,
human.
we're all human, 100%. But yeah, everything you said, all those things that go along with the monarchy throughout history, I don't like that shit, right? So I don't want that to continue. I don't want those things that continue happening in 2022. I think we're far past that. And I don't understand why these people are so shackled to this. And like, they feel like it's like they love being ruled by something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
They're like
and they
being
enjoy
told what
being
to do.
peasants.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we were watching House of the Dragon, which shout out to fucking HBO. It's a great show, right? But after we watched this last episode last night, I told my wife, I'm like, that's the same shit that's going on today, right?
Yeah.
It's just like less incest, right? You're not married. It's
Yeah.
less incest, but it's the same stuff that's going on today. It's like, how do we further this line of elites,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
and I'm like, if we can't see it now, we're never going to see it. And like you said, now that my eyes are open, I'm thankful. I'm in my 30s. I'm still young, and I can make these connections. Like that's not somewhere where I want to raise my kids. That's not
Right.
somewhere where I want to teach them that those are the right things to do. Like I want to be in a place where you know those things aren't viewed as is right. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. 100%. And like, yeah, all those things that you just said, and like it goes back to like the raising my kids here. As far as like do I like my house in my area? Yeah, it's great. Like the
Yeah.
schools are good. It's good. I'm not complaining about those things. It's just the overall things. Like I saw um uh Six Buzz. I think yeah, Six Buzz. They just posted. I think they post some dumb shit, some good shit too sometimes. But they posted like say if you made like $1 million a year in Ontario.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
you
I
see that
saw
one?
that. Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah,
And you walk out after everything, all your taxes you pay, you walk
400.
out with like 450 grand or something like that.
So I don't know if you saw the episode. He was on Rogan as well. Professor Gad Sad, out of Concordia.
I don't know if I saw that one.
Okay, so he's a Canadian. He's I, I'm gonna fuck this up, but I think he's Iranian or one of those Middle Eastern countries.
Was he the guy that was like he was like work with like he's an agent like or something like that? Or?
No. He's just a psychology professor at Concordia
Okay,
University,
no, okay,
right?
I don't think
But he's been on Rogan's show a few times, and he's really super educated.
okay.
And he wrote a book on his experiences of coming out of a war torn country, coming back and making it here, right? And he put it the best way that I could say, because then he comes, he got his publisher, and the publisher takes a cut, right? But then he gets his nice big fat check, and he's like, "Oh, finally, I made it. Finally, after all these years of toiling, after all these years of lectures and professing and all this stuff, I've made it. Here is like the proof in the pudding, the wealth that I can accumulate from the hard work." And then comes tax season. Now he's got to pay his tax. And he said he felt like he was raped, right?
Yeah,
Not in the sense like everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, he's comparing this to fucking rape." No, you fucking moron. Not in
yeah,
the sense that a man does
rape,
a stupid shit to a
rich
woman.
people.
This is like a financial rape, where
Yeah,
he ended up he thought when he was holding his money and the fruitions of his labor, like this is he's about he can now put aside and invest in the property he wanted to, and because I think he mentioned he wants to move to the U.S. and retire there. By the time he signed that money over to the Canadian government, he felt raped, and it's not like it was his experiences. They're taking his money that he made from
yeah,
writing about his own personal experiences. Like
yeah,
like the Canadian government was there. No, they weren't. They're
yeah,
just there's this. Oh, those are your experiences. You put them on paper. Okay, I'll take a piece of that. And
yeah.
that's what it feels like in Ontario, especially.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm not against taxes. I understand we have to pay
Yeah,
taxes. We need schools, we need, transportation, we need roads, we need all these things, right?
yeah,
So I'm not against that at all. But I think what they tax us on and what they continue to add more and more and more, and the cost of living is going up and up and up. Real estate is going up and up and up, but people's wages are not going up nearly as high as that.
no,
So they're just continuing to keep you down. They want, but literally like I said, I think the middle class is being wiped out completely, and you're having the elite class, the high level class, and then all those middle class, like where I grew up, they're
yeah,
just slowly fading down until it's going to be lower class. And I worry about my kids' future because what are they going to do? You know what I mean? Like, well, they're going to be stuck, man. So that's another reason why I want out of Ontario because I do feel it's the most taxed place in Canada,
yeah.
and I don't think we get what we pay for.
No. And one of the thing I only opened up my eyes to this when I started investing. It's like, say you buy a product at the store, the person who manufactured and all that kind of shit, they have to pay a tax to
Yeah,
buy the materials.
Yeah.
and say you go to Loblaws to buy it. Loblaws have to pay a tax to the manufacturer to buy that, and then
Yep.
you have to pay a tax to Loblaws to buy that, and then at the end of the fucking year, you still have to pay a tax
Pay your
on whatever.
taxes.
So you've been taxed on every single
Everything.
thing, every single thing,
Multiple times.
multiple times, um, which is probably 17 times the worth of the actual thing. And
Yep.
we kind of go around not realizing this. And then once you open your eyes to it, you're like, fuck, that's
Yep.
the biggest scam
100%.
ever.
And then once you have houses, you're paying land transfer tax and property tax and all these things that just continue to rise and go up. And what the fuck's the land transfer tax? Tell me that. Like, I'm not taking the land and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just another thing. Like I said, like it's just like a fishing license tax. Like they
Yeah.
just there's before it was whatever, it was nothing before, and then I can understand them implementing that, but then now there's tax. I'm like, it's just any way to gouge you, they will.
And the problem I think that people like me and you see is like those tax dollars are not going to the
Yeah.
schools. They're not going to fix roads. They're not going to that. They're going to fund elites.
Yes,
Uh,
that's my concern. And
yeah,
every time they rip down an old hospital, do they build a new one?
no,
No. That's what I'm like. Healthcare. You want to talk about being a free healthcare and the socialist healthcare here in Canada? It sucks, man. It's brutal.
it's terrible. It's
You know
terrible.
what it's great for? It's great for one thing. It's great for like my kid gets in a riding his bike, falls and breaks his leg. I can get that taken care of. It's covered as far as that. Or we get in a car accident and like it's that's fixed. The emergency stuff.
Yeah.
But like right now, I'm trying to get my knee done. I first of all have to get a referral from my family doctor, assuming I have one, which I do, thankfully. But
Yeah.
go get a referral from this person. So I have to book an appointment, wait a couple weeks to get in with them, get a referral, then send a referral to a surgeon. That takes like everywhere I've been talking like, but some of the early places without a hookup, it's like November, right?
Yeah.
So I gotta wait 2 months to get that, and then I gotta get a book the surgery booked if I need that. It's gonna take another probably 3 4 months. So by the time I get after this knee, it's gonna be about 7 8 months almost.
It's gonna cost you money, right? That's
Right?
money.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Like,
whereas you probably are heading down the line where you're like, well, how much does it cost? I'm willing to pay for it.
yeah, man, that's what I mean. It's like I went after my fight, I broke my nose, and Bellator pays for anything 30 days after that happens in the fight, right? So I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna get this fixed here, like just get reset anyway. So we went down. I walked in the hospital. They're like, yeah, we set an appointment with an ENT the next day. So I was like, perfect. Go to the ENT. She's like, okay. She looked at it. She's like, okay, I'm gonna put you in surgery tomorrow. So in 3 days, I got all
Yeah.
that taken care of. Where here I'd be waiting months.
Months, yeah. And your nose would be stuck fucking shifted
Yeah.
outside. uh,
So like
I,
I know there's again there's cons to the private healthcare too. I get that. There's no utopia. Everything's perfect. I get it. But as far as what we're paying into this, it's not. You're not getting it back. I
no,
feel it's not worth it.
no, and I'll give another example. And this is where my eyes opened to the healthcare problem. Was when my wife was pregnant with our second. She was at work, and she slipped. She didn't fall, but her like leg slid from under because she's a hairstylist. So she like stepped on a piece of hair, and it kind of slid. And then she
Mm.
got a huge pains in her stomach and in her, like her uterus area. So she calls me. She's like, "Dude, it's like fucking killing me." And I'm like, "Okay." So we have my daughter. She's only 2. I fucking bundle her up. It's like cold. It's like November. We go to the hospital, and we're sitting there for about between 6 to 7 hours in the emergency,
Yeah.
waiting for a doctor just to see her. It ended up she was fine, right? It was just like she stretched something. It was just a little bit of pain. She was fine. But what if she wasn't?
Yeah.
Right? What if she wasn't? And I was sitting there for 6 7 hours, about to lose my son, right?
Yeah.
And I even went up to the nurse. I'm like, I'll pay a doctor to see her. Like,
Right.
I will pay you $500 just to come and tell me, she's okay,
Yeah.
right?
Peace of
But
mind.
right, but no, you can't do that, sir. I'm
And
like,
then, dude, and 5 and 6 7 hours nowadays, it's like that's like not even that bad compared to like it's
yeah,
especially in the last few months. I've heard people waiting like 18 hours and shit.
yeah, and
Which is
it,
crazy.
and it's terrible. But I mean, we still hold on to this idea that it's the best way, and I don't think it is, right? And I think that, like you said, it has its place. But we like this is where the problem where Canada is like so we're actually more egotistical than a lot of countries because we think because we've been doing it our way for so long it's the best way, which it's not, right? And the governments, and I'm not singling out a certain one because I think they're all very similar. They don't want to fix these issues. They put band-aid solutions on it.
Right.
And like, oh, we'll give you free dental care. That doesn't fucking solve what's going on in the hospitals, right?
Right.
I'll pay to get my teeth fucking cleaned. I don't need free fucking dental care. I need people who need help to get help, not necessarily me. I don't care about me, right?
100%. No, I totally agree. But even on that point of like all the money that we're paying into the healthcare to have free healthcare, you don't even get dental. You
No,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Which is the most expensive shit. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Or like a chiropractor or a osteopath. Oh, that's just not covered. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But it's all health. You
yeah.
know. So it's like what the fuck? Or an eye doctor. It's health again. Why is not covered underneath
Well,
this
they
thing?
were fighting for years. They'd had to go on a potential strike just to get the government, Ontario government, just to compensate a little bit more money, right, for the eye exams. Because I was going to get some medicals done, and I'm like, what? I have to pay $200 for that test now? Why? And it's because they're like, well, they're not doing it with the government anymore because the
Yeah,
government was cheaping them out. So it is what it is, right?
yeah,
Uh, but we've been shitting on the government for a long time.
yeah.
uh, but it was a pleasure to do this with you. Thank you for coming on the Grounds Makers podcast. But let everybody know where they can reach out to you to reach out for your cerebral champion services because I'll testify I've used them. It's helped me turn the corner on my mental issues. So Josh is really good. I really highly recommend it. I'm not blowing smoke up his ass. I'm just literally stating facts. So tell them how they can get in touch with you with that.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Yeah, you can follow me for that. It's at Cerebral Champion. On Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, and I have my website, cerebralchampion.com. You can find me there, and then you can try and find me well, at Gentleman J Hill on Instagram and on Facebook. I don't have Twitter myself, so but yeah,
If you tag him, remember they say he's an extremist. He's not.
I'm an extremist. I'm a racist. I'm a right freak. You know.
He's so racist. He's talking to a brown guy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
he helped the brown guy get better mentally, right? He must be racist. One more thing before we finish, I wanted to bring up is the MMA community lost somebody really special
Yeah.
last week. And I knew him inside the cage, inside the gym. I didn't have a personal relationship outside the gym, but inside the gym, he was nothing but a stand-up person. We're talking about Elias Theodoru, the Spartan. Unfortunately, like I thought it was when I first saw the news on Sunday night. I'm like, what? It was a joke, and then it really hit me hard on Monday because he's a great person, and the one thing I wanted to say is please donate to his charity, the Theodoru Foundation. He that was one of his dying wishes to kind of get that going and to help people out with that same situation, access to medical care and medical cannabis. So please donate to that. And I don't know if you have anything to say about Elias and what he meant to you.
Yeah, man. Still like a bit shocked with that, man. Like it just when I heard, I was like, oh, like yourself, I wasn't like super tight with Elias, like, but like we trained many of the same gyms together. We came up together with the Score Fighting Series
Yeah.
at the same time, so we fought on cards together. And yeah, just like super nice guy. You know, what I mean, you got along with everybody. And probably everybody always kind of says this when somebody passed away, but like one of the most positive people.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
He actually was. You know, like you would never see that guy like in a bad mood or shit on anybody. He was always very positive and lighthearted. And yeah, man, that one hit hard. Just it sucks. You know, at 34 years old.
Healthy ox. He's an ox, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Cardio king. Like whenever
yeah,
we train together, I'm like, "Fuck, slow down, Elias!" Like
yeah,
Jesus Christ, right?
yeah, for sure.
But I hope that he rests easy and his family does well. And if we
Mm.
can, we can help remember him by everyone donating to his cause and to keep his memory alive. Right.
Yeah, yeah, man, for sure. Couldn't have said that better. 100%.
All right. Anyway, that's the end of this. We got shit to do, so let's get the fuck out of here.
All
But
right, buddy.
thank you to Josh the Gentleman Hill. Find him if he's not shadow banned.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Hey everybody, thank you for watching and listening to the Grinds My Gears podcast. Please head over to Spotify, make sure you like and subscribe, as well as head over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the like on the video as well, and head over to gmg-podcast.com to get all up-to-date info on the podcast as well as other special things that we have on that website.